Martin.
Embracing the ages, I am delighted to welcome you to witness another historical moment in the life of Faith Foundational Church. 200 years ago, a group of believers a plan. Their faith and the generations that followed have the place today to remember and honor those who stayed the course on this corner for so many years. Do this inspired by faith is not just a song.
Somewhat sad. It's the end of our 2-year journey as co-chairs of the anniversary committee, but we're excited that it's coming to an end and that we can celebrate this wonderful occasion. Thank you, welcome again, and enjoy the day.
Please turn with me in the program, and I'd ask that you would read the bold print. Beautiful are the works of God.
Beautiful also are the sayings of God's people.
Beautiful is the mind of God.
Beautiful also are the hopes of God's people.
Beautiful is the heart of God.
Beautiful also are the souls of God's people.
For 200 years and in the early life of Talcott Street Church, people have declared that God made the heavens and the earth.
To this day we say, God be the glory, that He is God has done.
Lift every voice and sing, till earth and heaven rings with the harmony of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Won't you pray with me? Gracious and loving God, with hearts of thanksgiving and praise, Faith Congregational Church returns home to Talcott Street today, acknowledging the faithfulness of her sustaining power as we celebrate 200 years of mission and ministry in the city of Hartford. Birthed out of the hopes and dreams of those whose dignity and sense of divine worth inspired them out of the balcony to found a faith community where descendants of slaves could worship freely. This is the spirit of innovation, courage, and justice that we stand on this hour. Remembering the rich history that is our past, our eyes also look forward and hope to the future. Empower us now with your divine wisdom and spirit that we might continue to proclaim the liberating gospel of Jesus Christ, serve as a beacon of justice in our community and our world, and engage our holy imagination for what will be in the days to come. Bless us now, O God, our time together as we recall, as we remember, as we celebrate. In the name of all that is holy, we pray. Amen. Amen.
Looking for the mayor. Not seeing the mayor. Bridget, would you come?
Good afternoon, everyone. It is really a pleasure to be here with you. I'm Bridget Quinn-Carey. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Hartford Public Library. And as you probably know, the library does many, many things. We have books and collections and programs, but we are here today in our role as a convener, as a partner, and as a catalyst to be here to help tell the stories that need to be told. And we're so proud to be here to be part of this historic celebration. The Hartford History Center at Hartford Public Library shares history with the city and the people who call it home. The Hartford History Center holds, preserves, and makes accessible a rich variety of public documents that record the everyday accounts of people who make a difference in the community. We are very proud to collaborate with Faith Congregational Church, Connecticut's Old State House, Real Artways, Catholic Community College, and local historians Steve Thornton and Charles Teal to make this day and this project possible. Together, we're able to showcase and share a significant and important story. This congregation has worked continuously to bring a voice to the needs of people in the community, and its rich history needs to be celebrated in a very visible, public way. This is an important day. As we look to the past and celebrate in the present, Hartford Public Library looks forward to continuing our long tradition of serving this wonderful community and sharing more stories. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Duncan Harris, the CEO of Capital Community College, and on behalf of Capital's 3,185 students and 500 faculty and staff that walk past this site on their way to provide or pursue education each and every day, I'd like to congratulate Faith Congregational Church on this historic milestone and 2 centuries of service, spiritual liberation, and uplift of the Hartford community. This is especially an honor for me as I have spent significant time at Faith over the years, having been fortunate to visit to worship and have a number of dear friends that are long-standing members, Lee and Gail, Al, Veronica, Joelle, Dorothy, and Carol. I also have a connection through my fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha, which is the first collegiate African-American fraternity founded in 1906, and has had a strong connection to Faith Congregational Church. The past members having served as pastor and having our meetings there and initiation ceremonies since the 1940s. Capital has been engaged in the planning of this ceremony since the onset, and I'd like to publicly acknowledge the work of Dr. Jeffrey Partridge, founder of Capital's nationally recognized Hartford Heritage Place-Based Learning Program. Dr. Partridge. Jeff ensured Capital was at the table for this historic program. Community is Capital's middle name, and we take very seriously our role as Hartford's community college. A few weeks ago, I had the opportunity to meet with Pastor Camp as he was finalizing the location for today's program. We reviewed a couple of spaces inside of the college, but when we left the building and came to this space, this unassuming space, we were moved. You see, looks can be deceiving. I'm quite certain there are a number of people here that study the Bible, and the good book is full of stories where we're taught that looks can be deceiving. And it's often not the most glamorous, or this or that has the most goodness or transformative power. This is hallowed ground. I have no doubt that our ancestors that used to assemble here each and every Sunday, as we have assembled here today, spoke to Pastor Camp and I that day, affirming that this was the place to launch today's ceremony. I feel their spirits among us now, and I'm glad Pastor made the decision to launch the program here and work with the city to see that it would happen. To close, I found a fitting piece of scripture that exemplifies and symbolizes how apropos it is that Capital Community College, a college that is 38% African American, I'd imagine some of whom can trace their lineage back to their ancestors here that used to worship and went to school here, that the college is also housed at this site on this hallowed ground, doing what was done here 200 years ago, providing quality instruction to and liberating the minds and spirits of members of the Hartford community. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 13 states, Keep hold of instruction. Do not let go. Guard her, for she is your life. Keep hold of instruction. Do not let her go. Guard her, for she is your life. Thank you, and congratulations, Faith Congregational Church, for 20 years of service and uplift of our community.
Good afternoon. My name is Ken Sly. I serve as the conference minister at the Connecticut Conference of the United Church of Christ. And I want to bring greetings on behalf of the 253 congregations that make up our communion here in the state of Connecticut. We stand with Faith Congregational this day as you celebrate your 200th anniversary. It's time for the hidden history to be hidden no more. It's time to be out in the street. It's time to be at this location where the church first gathered. It's time to not hide anymore. You know the story of Pentecost when the disciples were locked up in a room, in an upper room. You know that they were frightened, they were scared. And all of a sudden the Holy Spirit descended upon them and they took the faith where? To the streets. They literally took the faith into the streets. And so faith is in the streets today to celebrate its 200th anniversary. It is important to remember. It is important to take stock and to recognize the ancestors on whose shoulders we stand. To know the way that they made possible for us, and to know that it is our holy responsibility now to make a way for those who follow. This congregation, Faith Congregational Church, has had an impact on Hartford, but not only Hartford, it's had an impact on the lives of so many people, some of whom are gathered here. But think of all the saints who have passed through that congregation, who made an impact, who made a difference, who have stood up for justice, who have stood up for sharing God's love in the world. Amazing things have happened. And guess what? There's no assigned seating today. There's no balcony here in the street. We are here to sit together under the umbrella of God's eternal love to proclaim that faith is a congregation committed to justice, committed to diversity, committed to building community, and committed to Jesus Christ. Together, we stand on the side of Jesus and justice. Congratulations, Faith. Congratulations for this anniversary. And get ready, because 200 years lie ahead for you to make an impact and a difference. Thanks be to God. Amen.
Good afternoon, Faith and friends. Again, I would like to extend words of welcome and appreciation on behalf of members of Faith Congregational Church. My name is Dr. Dorothy Mosby. I'm a professor and also an associate dean of faculty at Mount Holyoke College. And I know when you ask either a pastor or a professor to be brief, it is a bit of a challenge. So I will try my best. So we've all come here today to commemorate the 200th anniversary of a congregation that in so many ways has followed the trajectory of the history of the city of Hartford, as well as the history of this nation. We so often pass through spaces and places without so much thinking of who or what was here before us. But if we listen closely, the place will tell you its story. I want to acknowledge that we gather here on the original site of the Talcott Street Church, that we are also in a place that was witness to the continued unfolding of the history of people who challenged injustice. We stand on what was the traditional land of the Tecumseh, the Sycamore, and the Wampum peoples who fought against the brutality of colonization and whose ancestral voices echo in the air and whose blood blood still courses through the veins of some of those here present today. This land witnessed the sale and purchase of human beings. This land witnessed a group of free people of color say enough to racial segregation that existed in the pews and rafters of the Congregational Church. They challenged injustice and were determined to never relegate another human being to the rear or to the galleries. And they established their own inclusive culture of worship with the founding of the African American Religious Society. They did not set out to establish the first Black congregational church in the state of Connecticut or the third such congregation in the nation, but what they did do was challenge injustice. This land is also the place where J.W.C. Pennington nurtured his commitment to social justice. Pennington, a fugitive slave from the state of Maryland, was allowed to attend Yale in the 1830s, but was denied the privilege of enrolling as a degree candidate. In his own words, quote, "I was refused entry to Yale Seminary, but I was told that I could sit with the classes as a visitor, and I could hear the lectures, but my voice was not to be heard in class, either to ask or answer a question. I could not get a book from the library, and my name was never to appear in the catalog." In 1840, he went on to lead the Talcott Street congregation in its fight against the injustice of the African slave trade, with fundraising and a historic collaboration with the Congregational Church in Farmington. There are just too many names that we know, and many, many more names of people who have faded into the pages of the archives, whose connection to this place was instrumental in the struggle to make this city and this nation live up to the promise of equality and justice. As we stand in this place where the past and present converge, let's honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have formed its history throughout the generations. For all of us here today, let this be an affirmation of our commitment to always fight for justice. And I will end with these words from the book of Micah. "He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with him." Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Will K. Wilkins. I'm the director of Real Artways, a contemporary art center here in Hartford for 45 years. And congratulations to everybody at Faith. This is a thrilling ceremony, a thrilling moment to be part of it. 29 years ago, Real Artways worked with the Faith Congregational Church and the artist Mel Chin to create an evocation of the Talcott Street Church on its original site. And you see we have a photo over here of that public art project, which was produced in 1991. And some of you were here at that opening, I know. When I was asked to become involved in the meetings and the conversations about how Real Artways might contribute to the 200th anniversary, I immediately reached out to the artist Mel Chin and to see if he would want to be involved again, and he said he would love to. And he had the idea of updating this public art project and taking a physical evocation of the church, but then also using new technology, augmented reality, to create an opportunity to envision what the inside of the church may have been. Over the course of the last 9 to 10 months, Mel's faced some serious personal difficulties. He had some health issues that were really tough. He was in a car accident. He's had some bad things happen to him. But he's also had some good things happen to him. This last week, the MacArthur Foundation out of Chicago, which gives people what they call Genius Grant Awards, named Mel Chin to receive for his lifetime work a Genius Grant. So, and this project was an early part of Mel's work, and it has been very important to him. And we get to say that we work with a genius now, which is fantastic. So in the course of that conversation, during that period of time, this building was also sold. And the new owners of it are Shelburne, the real estate company, which has several holdings here in town, and Laz Parking. We have had some preliminary conversations with Laz and Shelburne about the idea of taking this site where the original church stood and creating a permanent evocation and remembrance of the church, but also looking to the future and to create a space where we can talk about people working together, connecting with each other, and struggling for justice and equality and togetherness. So we have gotten a very strong positive response from the people at Shelburne and at Laz. It's the early stages of this, but our hope is that we can have a permanent memory of the Talcott Street Church on this site, and we're going to be working towards that over the course of the next period of time. Thank you all very much to Faith and everybody involved in that. Thank you very much for this opportunity to work with an artist, to work with a congregation and a community around something that really matters. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to be sure everybody is still awake. I have the pleasure. I'm Patricia King, and although I am other things, today I am the First Lady of Faith Church. I have the pleasure to introduce our guest speaker today, or I should say introduce and present, because I know that many of you are familiar with her from her time in Hartford. She has a very long and involved and illustrious resume. She is a wonderful, wonderful person, I am sure. I don't know her in that way, but I do know her work. So let me tell you how I first came across Beverly Morgan Welch. About 10 years ago or so, she participated in a series of, Don't turn around. That's too good. I want to be good. That's just my thing. Mr. Mayor. Come on. I'm sorry. I just could not resist the temptation. No. You come up here, and then I will do this after
Get it, Patricia, get him.
There was no sneaking into this one. Thank you, Patricia. And let me first of all say to Pastor Camp and to the entire Faith Congregational Church community, congratulations on 200 years of a rich history. I'm sure that there has been much said about the history of this church already, and that there will be much more said still. But I think it is something worth taking a beautiful afternoon like this to celebrate. That this is the first church where residents of our city who were not welcome in another church service other than in the back or in the second tier decided to form their own service and then built the support to build their own church right here. But more important than that, from my perspective, maybe not more important, but just as important, is that while there may not be many churches today who exclude people on the basis of race, there are economies that exclude people. There are neighborhoods and communities that exclude people. There are subtle, almost invisible barriers placed all over the place. And Faith Congregational Church has remained a place that not only is committed to its core mission of worshiping God, of spreading the Word of God, of creating a community of faith, but also challenging all of us to think more about how we can live up to our values and how we can best live out God's Word on earth. And I know under Pastor Camp, you have made faith, again, not just a place of ministry, but a place where you have had conversations in our community that need to be had and often aren't happening other places. And I think there's no better way to honor the history of Faith Congregational Church than to do that. So thank you, Pastor, for that leadership. Thank you to everyone for coming out and marking this historic day. Forgive me for being late. I didn't know that you'd notice. But I am so proud to be here to celebrate this historic anniversary with you today. God bless you.
Alrighty then. I'm sorry, I can do that to my queen. So, let me go on and say what was that? Oh, I know. In 2009, Beverly Morgan Welsh participated in a series of, it was William Cohen's book and his, okay, you're right, William Cohen, who was the Secretary of Defense, put together a series of conversations, and they were broadcast on C-SPAN. And one of the participants of these conversations was Beverly Morgan Welsh, and that is how I came to know who she was. And I watched her talk and was just amazed. Not that she would know all that she knew, and not that she could say all that she said, but that there was no one who was sitting there who was more knowledgeable of all of these people who were there. There was no one who was better spoken. There was no one who impressed me more than Beverly Morgan Welsh. She was amazing. Now, she's a black woman. We're in the same generation, although she looks younger than I do, but that's okay. And I know she went to Smith College. She graduated. She went to Smith College in the days we started college the same year. And I remember what it was like to be a black person in a white school fighting the good fight. And it was not easy. But to look at her now, you would never know that she put up with the struggles, the difficulties, the biases that have approached her at that time and continue to influence her life and her work. She is currently the Associate Director for External Affairs for the Smithsonian Institutional National Museum of African American History and Culture, which we now know as our museum. And I say that because Faith Church has an exhibit in that museum. Our Pennington Bible has been loaned to the Smithsonian and is there now for people to go and look at it. I also want to say to you that I'm not going to go through all of her awards. She's got all these awards because, you know, she's not like 20. So she's been around a while and she has received many, many, many awards. But I do want to say to you that when I asked her what she wanted me to say, it wasn't readily available. Because all of you can go online and you can read her bio. But what she said was that she enjoyed the time that she has spent at Faith Church. Some of you know her from her work with the Amistad Center over at the Wadsworth, and others of you know her from other things that she's done in town, as well as on the national stage. So, without further ado, I want to introduce to some and present to others Beverly Morgan Welch.
Oh, good afternoon. She got me there. I have tissues in my pocket, but I'm afraid they'll blow away. To the good Pastor Camp, to the chairs and participants of this 200th anniversary committee, to the members of Faith Congregational Church, to the distinguished clergy and the honorable and honored officials, participants, and guests, to my family and friends, on behalf of the Smithsonian Institution, National Museum of African American History and Culture, I bring you the congratulations on your 200th anniversary from an institution that just celebrated its third year with some 6.5 million visitors. I want to take this opportunity to extend our everlasting gratitude to those of you who contributed to this mighty endeavor. I know there are charter members and donors among you. When you approach the edifice, the museum, from the sky or land, how could you miss it, wrapped in a beautiful filigree package and chock full of challenging hardship, soaring delight, and breathtaking triumph. Within the hollowed halls of the museum, you find the story of African Americans engaged across this nation, free and enslaved, as architects and agricultural workers. Authors and artists, launderers and lawyers, cowboys and conductors, seamstresses and scientists, explorers and entrepreneurs, porters and preachers, seamen and soldiers, philanthropists and physicians, inventors and intellectuals, men and women. The hungry and thirsty pilgrims, many first-time museum goers who make their way to the 19th Smithsonian are looking for an education, confirmation, illumination, affirmation, clarification, satisfaction, and elevation, and more. Faith Church was among the first who visited the museum early and were able to experience the power and the promise of an exquisite idea, culminating in an institution whose time had come. The National Museum of African American History and Culture and Faith Congregational Church are those seminal institutions whose very buildings make history. And we are humbled and grateful to share that powerful place with you. At the dawning of the new republic, when Africans in Hartford began gathering and worshiping in segregated spaces, they decided to gather together and create a church, to create a school, to end slavery, to organize, to secure the rights and responsibilities of citizenship, not just for themselves but for others, of suffrage, of equality, and of freedom. They hoped and prayed for more to join them. Those of faith gathered in homes where they began praying together, sharing their beliefs, building a community of believers in a city for a country and with a constitution. The body, now known as Faith, formed in 1819. When there were too many in number to meet in a house, they met in a church already established, the First Congregational Church, Center Church, once my church, founded by the Reverend Thomas Hooker and Hartford's oldest organized church body, joined by Hartford's oldest organized black church body. While Hartford was founded in 1636, by 1638, in what is now New England, native inhabitants were captured in what is called the Pequot Wars and kidnapped to the Caribbean and bartered for enslaved Africans. Those first Africans in New England were our ancestors and helped to establish this nation's and its life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And they had so much more work to do. In 1774, the Connecticut Colony passed a law ending the importation of enslaved persons, and in 1784, a law of gradual emancipation, resulting in the legal end of slavery in Connecticut, came about by about 1848. More than 200 years passed. You can well imagine why black and white anti-slavery activists called for immediate emancipation, and why this nation has yet to find truth in who and how America was made, and how free labor and inhumanity powered the economy and still infects our national psyche. Africans and descendants of Africa, spiritual, political, educational, organizational, and cultural warriors and patriots, after meeting as a church, built a church home here on Talcott Street. It is no wonder it is so close to the Connecticut River. The archaeology of black communities, time and again, are found located on the water for sustenance, for industry, and safe passage. Often relegated to spaces that were the most challenging land, churches are anchored throughout the landscape and close to the ocean and river. The community would have seen it as a beacon of hope, especially for those seeking freedom, comfort, and nurture. With the building, a school was organized and meetings on all matters and subjects such as the abolition of slavery, education of children, and the self-emancipated, discrimination in public accommodations, the right to vote and rule. They built a place to gather and discuss and contemplate and plan and organize for the betterment of the children, adults, organizations, they do so very much, they travel so very far, seek such esteemed leadership, support so many causes, and challenge so many laws. The examples of their good works are many, including their assistance with the Amistad captives. Black churches were entwined, not by denomination, but by their sheer belief in a common cause and the power of their existence. This network of New England churches were built from Abyssinian in Portland, Maine, to Portsmouth, New Hampshire, to Nantucket, to the African Meeting House in Boston, to Talcott Street Church right here in Hartford. I'll let the motorcycles go. Those first members gathered to form the foundation of the community and carved a path forward in the face of slavery. And with their hard-won freedoms, helped to end it. One of our galleries in the museum is entitled Making a Way Out of No Way. Many of you know, and have just heard of the Reverend James William Charles Pennington, who was a minister and essential leader. He stands for faith's beginnings and as an exemplar of faith today. Born enslaved in Maryland to a mother and father he knew and grew up with, he became a self-emancipated man. Imagine what it is to secure your freedom, only to learn that millions of your people are enslaved. Not just you, not just those that you've come across in Maryland, but all around the country. Now, making his way to New York and Connecticut, he became an anti-slavery activist. And as you heard, sat in jail, but was not awarded a degree. Black and white abolitionist communities sought out Reverend Pennington as a preacher, pastor, and leader, including a couple recently escaping the enslaving state of Maryland with no means of paying a minister to join them in holy matrimony, received the generosity of a clergyman named Pennington. He freely performed the marriage of a free woman and a Maori, and a formerly enslaved, self-emancipated man, Frederick Douglass. When he traveled to Paris for a World Peace Congress, a rare privilege was afforded him by Germany's Heidelberg University. Pennington was awarded an honorary doctorate in 1849. Today, he is celebrated at Heidelberg with the James W.C. Pennington Award for distinguished scholars who pursue topics dear to Pennington, including slavery, emancipation, education, peace, civil rights, and religion, among other topics. Now, both Faith Congregational Church and the Museum of African American History are inextricably tied in so many ways. And the people who conceived, imagined, and constructed those institutions and buildings made a way out of no way. Institutions have the power to provide a powerful foundation for a people yearning for truthfulness, uprightness, fairness, righteousness, togetherness, worthiness, seriousness, happiness, respectfulness, and goodness. The museum was an idea, a vision, an act of Congress, and an enormous project that required many things, including authentic, powerful objects to tell a challenging, harrowing, and empowering story. Faith stepped forward with a holy Bible. We have collected more than 37 objects with more to come, and approximately 3,000 are now on view. when I need to stop and take time to understand the enormity of the accomplishment of opening the museum, I go to my favorite objects. Among those I seek for solace and perspective is the Pennington Bible, located in the gallery called Slavery and Freedom. That Bible, loved by Faith Congregational Church, is evidence of freedom rising. On behalf of the museum, I offer our abundant and continued gratitude. Faith has shown the nation and the world through 200 years of worship and service. The impossible is actually achievable. You have and you are part of a precious legacy. And as a result of your service, you help to raise the bar for meeting as a church, elevated the aim of the faithful, our spiritual consciousness, our religious history, and what it means to be a beloved community and country. I am reminded of all of the former pastors and parishioners embodied in this august body gathered this day. I am the wife of a former ordained servant of faith, the Reverend Mark Welch Jr., who preached one of his first and his last sermon in Hartford at Faith Congregational Church. I am delighted, honored, and overwhelmed by the occasion to stand here where he once stood to celebrate an anniversary with you. We, you and I, are the witnesses, guardians, and the stewards of a majestic faith. Thank you.
Friends, let me first thank all of you for being present on this special occasion for Faith Congregational Church today. I'll say more at the Connecticut Old State House, where you are all invited to a reception that follows our moments here. Please know we are grateful for each one of you who are among us today. In these turbulent times in our nation, this is a moment of real celebration. Time to give thanks for the efforts of so many who have made this day happen both historically and presently. I'm going to ask if you would pray with me for just one moment. Dear God, may the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart just be acceptable in your sight, O God, for you are my strength and my Redeemer. And speak now for your servants who are gathered here. In the name of Christ. Amen. Friends, from this sacred desk, this podium, this very pulpit, we believe, we know that it was used by the church here at Talcott Street. We believe from the turn of the last century until our move to our current location on Main Street. This pulpit was that we found hidden away in the dark, unused part of the church basement of our current church building with inches of dust upon it. This pulpit, of which I humbly stand behind. This sacred desk, we believe, has many stories to tell. It reminds us of what was and points us toward what still can be. It has a wealth of hidden history. It tells the stories of justice, stories of purpose and principle, of defiance and self-determination. This sacred desk, we believe, still speaks. From this pulpit, we believe that many ideas were hatched for freedom. Sacred words turned into viable action. Those who stood here fearlessly helped move this community forward, this city, even this nation, toward a clearer sense of just actions and even greater future. From this sacred desk, this pulpit, at this time an emerging black community began to find direction. From here, the abolitionist movement was enhanced. That movement was not just a white organization. From this pulpit, the city forever changed in what it viewed as diversity within it. From this pulpit, people were moved to support some defenseless captives, to start a school for children who had no opportunity for learning existed because of the hue of their skin. This was the church that stood as if a polar opposite to the emerging gun manufacturing business, a very lucrative insurance agent industry that financed a slave industry in the South. It was here in this city that struggled with a counterpoint in the national conversation as our city struggled to bend the long arc, as Martin King talked about, toward justice. It was here on this spot that this church erected and stood as a symbol of a better way, calling forth the better angels within each person of that time. Who would have thought those 200 years from the marked and stated historical date 1619, when slaves were brought to and auctioned off in Virginia, here in Hartford, a church would emerge, opening its doors to signal the advance of freedom and justice for all 200 years later, saying no to being separate and unequal. Talcott Street Congregational Church is an American story. It cannot be hidden or brushed aside as unimportant. So I say to you today, celebrate a history today so consequential in the history and the forward progress of our city, our state, and indeed our nation. From its organization of the Hartford Literary and Religious Institution in the 1830s, largely forwarded by Congregationalist Methodist preacher Hosea Easton, to the work of Dr. James W.C. Pennington, a slave who ran to freedom, to then become a lecturer, scholar, activist, a pastor, and first person, as has been said, to attend Yale College, now university. We can celebrate that many pastors from Reverend Wheeler to Reverend Wright, who spent 74 of the 200 years in faithful service with Talcott Street and Faith. It was from the Reverend Sam Gilbo through interim pastors like Reverend Mark Welch, Reverend Julia McLean, and Reverend Joseph Zezel, who helped the church through significant moments, and even to Reverend Barbara Headley, the first female settled pastor of the church. From then to now, it is clear that justice has been in the DNA of this church and at the core of its endeavors. Clearly, the church has said a personal and a profound no to the injustice of second-class balcony experience, to living as a second-class citizen in our nation, but says yes to the relationships it has built over the 200 years in working with even those who have oppressed them. Over the years, the church has learned, as one writer said, and I quote, that justice without forgiveness is nothing more than revenge. From this sacred desk, through the years, it has been taught that faith matters, that every person matters, that no one should be barred or exempted. This is a sacred desk as it has lived on this sacred spot. It has been a bold act of self-determination, an enduring testament to the vision of laymen and laywomen who forged a clear and brightly lit path for our present generation, and yes, for those that will follow. This is why we are able to say today, it's really about justice, not just us. That's why we're able to say, we welcome all and we do mean all. It has been about justice. Our founders had good intention in their DNA. Even the dollars that Talcott Street Congregational Church raised to help free and defend the captives in the Amistad event, dollars that were not expended, given centuries of interest. Those dollars are still being used today to build churches within the United Church of Christ, to help meet the demands of our present day and concerns. The impact of this church continues to matter. So I say to you today, be glad for the 200-year-old vision handed forward, not just to Faith Church, but to all of us. Not just to Faith Church, but to all of us in the city of Hartford. Let it not be hidden away, for use this historic vision and of freedom and equality uniquely placed in this city through the ongoing ministry of this church. Let it be a compass through these turbulent times in which we live. For we all know that if we do not seek to learn from our history the difficult parts of our history. Oh my, it may be repeated. Thank you for your presence. May God continue to smile on Faith Congregational Church. But we're going to trust in his holy word, and they never fail me yet. Okay, so we need to leave from here and go to the old State House, right? I don't want anybody to trip on any cord. Be careful. You can either go up the street and down to the old State House, or you can walk with some of us who are going to go down this way, which we think is the better route to the old State House. But what I would like to do is to ask, you know, we started at Center Church, so I'm going to ask if Pastor Shelley would come and join me here. And I'm going to ask our sister church that also came out of Center Church, Carrie Nice-Wonder, to join me here. And we're going to lead all you folks over there. Does that make sense? All right? So we need a path. We're going to look that way and down, and up the street. Okay? Now, I see the president of Hartford Seminary. Would you come and join us and walk with us, please? Brother Joe. Amen. All of you. If you are going to come, all of you, would you walk with us? Walk with us? Walk with us? All right, we're going to go off that way.